Hello everyone, it's Shane, and I have my glasses on today, so you know what that means. We're going to dig in deep and look at symbolism and explanations for really important things. And if you're wondering why this is on my wrist, it's because I'm considering making it an actual tattoo. This wasn't exactly what I had in mind. It was actually supposed to be like smaller and go across, but then I drew it like this and I was like, actually that looks kind of cool, so I'm actually really considering it. So anyways, today I will be explaining BTS's Run MV. And the reason I waited so late to do this MV is because I was kind of expecting another music video to come out that may have had something to do with everything. Not necessarily that it might tie everything together, but it might make things easier to explain. But since the video, I put out my Run reaction about 2 weeks ago and nothing has come out, so I've decided that I guess nothing is coming out. If any of you had theories on the whole thing and Run comes out and you're like, oh my goodness, I was wrong about all of it, do not think that way. Absolutely not. Just because Run came out, that does not negate or null your theory at all. Do not think that you are wrong. But anyways, I'm going to be explaining the Run MV, and I have split this, basically I've split the explanation into three major things, and that is the House of Cards, the Blue Roses, and the quote that's on the wall, which I will get to. But I've split it into those three major things, and I have written everything I can about this MV on one page. I've written it all here. Here's my explanation for the lyrics to Run. So to start off, I'm going to start off with the lyrics meaning. So after reading the lyrics to Run, if any of you have ever read it, my thing is Run probably represents, like in the first verse it says Namjoon is rapping, I believe, and he says something about even though he says something, I bloomed for you but I'm still thirsty, and I reach out to you, and then later on Sugar raps and he's like, it's an empty dream, I'm still in the same place. And basically I've come to the conclusion that Run is basically, the song itself is about going after something that you can't attain, and the whole song is just running after something, even if you know that in the end it's not going to, in the end you probably can't reach it. An unattainable goal or someone or something that you go after and you continue to chase after, and maybe you're stupid for chasing after, and in the end you probably know that you shouldn't chase after it, but you can't stop. You just keep running towards it. You just keep going. Sometimes if you look at the lyrics, they kind of contrast in a way, like the thoughts, it can be like contrasting thoughts in your head. Like it says, you know, I'm chasing after you, I want to get to you, but it's like, don't tell me, bye. And then it's like, love is a lie, but then it's like, I love you, but things like that. It kind of contrasts, so it can be like the contrasting thoughts you have when you are going after something and you tell yourself, well, should I quit or should I keep going? Now, the entire concept, which I will do in another video, I will explain Hwayang Younghwa Part 1, Hwayang Younghwa Part 2, like together, like the whole thing, the whole meaning. Well, really, I'm just going to be explaining Hwayang Younghwa Part 2, and if you're asking, like, why don't you just say the most beautiful moment in life? Well, it's because Hwayang Younghwa is really fun to say. So, I'll be explaining the theories behind the entire concept, which is the ones that are the most relevant, is the butterfly effect and the Peter Pan theory. Okay, so we start off kind of with like Taehyung drowning. Taehyung is drowning throughout the entire video. Why is he drowning? What is he drowning for? If we go off the meaning of the entire song, him drowning is kind of like that. But if we go off the butterfly effect, with which a lot of you know is like even a small change can have a really big impact. What I've decided is that to explain his drowning, if we go off the butterfly effect, him drowning may have been him realizing that there was something that he should have done that he didn't do, or something that he did do that he shouldn't have done, and maybe wish that he could go back and fix but can't. And I think more, and as I go into the song, it was more of something that he didn't do that he should have done. Okay, then moving on. In the beginning you see the shack that Namjoon's staying in, and he comes out of it, and you realize that this place is kind of like, it's a wreck. And you realize that Namjoon doesn't actually have a real place to stay. He's staying inside some old abandoned, I think it's actually a train car. But yes, this place looks exactly like the place that the boys are having their campfire at in the prologue. And that's what I think. I think it's the same exact place in the prologue. Next, you see that Jin is being outlined. And then you see Taehyung spray painting, which is kind of like the spray painting that they did in the prologue. Moving on, Jin is building this house of cards, and Taehyung knocks it down. Rude. But a house of cards generally is represented by this, I guess like this idea that a structure is built on a weak foundation or a shaky foundation. And I would say that in the concept they have built, this foundation can be, and like in a big picture, in the overall, it can be a parental thing. Within the group, it can be Jin is the shaky foundation. It could be Namjoon is the shaky foundation, or the shaky foundation can just be this idea of the house of cards is representing growing up, and the foundation is what you needed or the skills that you're required to need to grow up. And that will make sense when I explain the quote. There is writing on the wall, and writing on the wall is always important in an MV, even if you can't read it. On the wall, there is 2 quotes that you can really, really see behind Namjoon. And it's, one of the quotes is something like, the toddler's eyes are, it looks like wild. I have typed this in, and I've seen wide. And then I see, and it says something else like, the tassels of his something, and I've seen knit, for someone to fill it in, and then something limply toward the subway, and then I've seen car next to it. Because I cannot make out what that quote actually says on the wall, I cannot explain that to you. But I can explain to you the one that's really important, and that is wasted youth enter the void. What I have said that this quote can mean is, this quote can mean those who wasted their youth and entered a void like a place of darkness, because in their youth they didn't do a lot of things. And so they entered this place of like nothingness because they had no good times. They didn't have like a good, like youthful, they didn't take advantage of it, because the things you regret the most are the things you didn't do. And, but this can also mean, wasted youth can also mean youth who wasted their time as a youth. So they didn't try to like grow up or mature or anything to help them prepare for the coming of adulthood. They were rebellious and just acted like hooligans because they didn't care and it didn't matter. And you can see this in the way the boys act throughout the Run MV. And and then the void, Well, the definition of void can mean completely empty, not valid or legally binding, or and therefore ineffective, and also nothingness, such as like when someone becomes an adult, they weren't prepared for the things they had to face, the reality they had to face head on, because they didn't try to better themselves when they were younger, or they didn't try to get the proper, like, I guess, schooling or education on adult like things when they were younger, and therefore they enter this void because they don't know what to do or how to deal with the situation, which goes back to what I was saying earlier about the House of Cards. And then going on, according to like philosophy, the void means nothingness, which is like beliefs, concepts, ideas. Is there really anything out there? Is that true? Does that mean anything, or it means nothing at all? So as a wasted youth, you enter the void because you never went searching for answers, or you went searching for them and people never really had any real answers that sufficed with you. Which also, this really ties into what I'm going to talk about later with the cards and the House of Cards. You have all this curiosity and this need to know a lot of knowledge and know a lot of things, but no one could give you answers. So you enter this void because it just, you don't believe. There's no point in believing, and then what are you growing up for? Like, there's no point in growing up, because what are you even growing up for? What's the point in believing? What's the point in anything? Nothing really matters, that kind of thing. So waste your youth, because there's really nothing out there for you past your youth. Woo! Also, the pairings are really important. Namjoon and Taehyung are one pairing. Suga and Jungkook are another pairing, and Jimin and J-Hope are the other pairing. And what I think this kind of represents is like the elders being like a guide for the youth, and kind of stepping them and showing them the way, or being an example to the ones who are younger than them. The places that they're running to, and those are places that they've been when they were together, because they go to these places and they're like, like having mental breakdowns, and because they're not with each other, and that's why I say that the pairings are really important. Then I have like questions for you as a viewer, which I've actually already answered them, but are the boys running to something, or are they running from something? If they're running to or from something, what is it that they're running to or from? And then, okay, when Namjoon and Taehyung get arrested, Namjoon smells at Taehyung, and Taehyung smells back at him. Why do they do that? I think it's because in the lyrics to Run, it says it's okay to be injured. It's okay. Something else is okay. I think it was because it's okay, even though they were having a tough time right there because they were kind of getting arrested. Namjoon's smile was like, it's okay. And Taehyung was like, oh, okay, it's okay. And then we get to J-Hope, who is in the hospital for his narcolepsy. Jimin visits him in the hospital. Hope is really happy to see Jimin, and Jimin's there, and my question is like, why is Jimin at this place? So I think that the place, while on the outside it would represent a hospital or an asylum like area, it can also be limbo at the same time, where they're waiting for the other members, because I'm not really sure why Jimin would be there, if that makes sense. Like, why would Jimin be there? Like, why would Jimin be at the hospital, or what would it be? Or if Jimin tried to drown himself and people came by and then they got him and they were like, are you okay? And he was like in recovery. But I still think of it as a place where they're waiting for the rest of their members. Okay, then we have the pillow fight, and we see all these feathers everywhere. Feathers symbolize ascension or moving and spiritual evolution to a higher place. And it can be like if we refer to the Peter Pan theory, which I really won't go deep into because this is not the video for that. But if we consider the Peter Pan theory, it would mean that these feathers that I would think that Jin was the feathers, because you go in and you see Namjoon and he picks up this card that was lying in the middle of the feathers. I would say that Jin is the feathers because the feathers, like I said, represent ascension and spiritual evolution into a higher place. And it could be like a necessity to grow up. Not literally that Jin has moved on, but that, even though technically that's true, but it can mean that Jin had to grow up. He had no choice. Alright, so in this next scene, you see that Namjoon picks up the Ace of Clubs with a butterfly in the center. In my previous video, I've already explained to you that the butterfly is just kind of like the whole metamorphosis, going through changes. It's really actually the perfect representation of life. A butterfly. So an Ace of Clubs,